Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at kind of the world of international finance and trade,
Okay.
and specifically what's going on with the euro, especially with the potential for
Yeah.
trade tensions with the U.S. We got some interesting sources here that suggest that
Waiting.
the EU might be using some tactics that they've tried before to handle these challenges.
Right.
So I think this is going to be a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it's interesting how the euro's doing in the short term. It's kind of bouncing back a little bit,
Yep.
but the long-term outlook is a bit uncertain.
Right.
And the EU's response to all of this is also pretty interesting. It seems like they're trying to appease the US,
Uh,
but at the same time maybe having a little bit of a backup plan ready just in case things don't go their way.
yeah. Well, let's break this down a little bit and maybe start with the euro itself.
Sure.
It recently dipped, pretty low against the dollar,
Mhm.
got down to like 1.0209, but it started to recover a little bit.
Okay.
And our sources suggest that it's aiming for around 1.0418.
Interesting.
And one of the things that I found really fascinating is that it's already climbing above
Yeah.
what's called a descending trend line on the charts.
Oh, okay.
Now, I know that sounds a little technical, but basically a descending trend line means the euro has consistently been losing value against the dollar.
Right, right.
So breaking above that line, it suggests that maybe
Yeah.
it's starting to regain a little bit of strength.
Yeah. So what do you think is behind this rebound? What's driving this?
Well, it seems like one of the major factors is
Yeah.
the resolution of the U.S., Mexico, Canada
Oh, right.
tariff discussions. Remember all the uncertainty around those talks?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, markets really don't like uncertainty.
Oh.
And it looks like this resolution has brought back some confidence,
Yeah.
and that's given the euro a little bit of breathing room.
No. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think Dr. Win Thing, he's the global head of market strategy at Brown Brothers Harriman. He even called this a lull.
Interesting. A lull, huh?
Yeah, and I wonder what that means for investors, this kind of lull.
Yeah, because a lull kind of suggests that it's a temporary period of calm
Yeah.
before
Right.
things might potentially heat up again.
Exactly, yeah. It could be like a chance for investors to kind of take a step back, reassess their positions, maybe even capitalize on some short-term opportunities.
Yeah.
But they also need to be prepared because once that lull ends,
Yeah.
there's potential for things to get volatile again.
Right. So it's like they get a break
Yeah,
before the next round of,
exactly.
so to speak,
Yeah,
and they need to be ready for whatever comes.
exactly. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. It highlights how important it is to stay informed
Yes.
and to be prepared to change your strategies
Yep.
as things keep developing.
Yeah, because the situation's always evolving.
Yeah. So, the euro is enjoying this little breather right now.
Right.
But the big question is, what happens long term?
Mm-hmm.
Some experts are even saying the euro could reach parity with the dollar.
Parity. Wow. That would be huge because that hasn't happened in over 2 decades.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what that would do. It would impact so many things. Import prices, export prices, investment flows, tourism. I mean,
Could be a big deal for
huge.
businesses and consumers
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
alike.
Yeah.
But it seems like some experts are even more pessimistic than that, aren't they?
Yeah, there are some that are even more, like George Saravellos from Deutsche Bank.
Okay.
He's predicting the euro could drop even further, like to 0.98, 0.99 against the dollar.
Wow.
He's saying this is because of the European Central Bank.
Okay.
Their policies, he thinks they're too hawkish.
Now, when you say hawkish, what does that mean in this context?
Well, think of it this way. Hawkish policies, they're all about controlling inflation, even if it means slowing down the economy a little bit.
Mhm.
And that often involves raising interest rates.
Gotcha.
So if the ECB is more hawkish than the U.S. Federal Reserve, it could make investing in euro-denominated assets less attractive, and that could lead to a decrease in demand for the euro,
Okay.
which means
And that could lead to it.
depreciation. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just about what's happening in the U.S.,
Right.
but also internal factors within the Eurozone
Exactly.
that could impact the value.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of the EU's strategy, it seems like they're trying to play it safe here
It does.
by appeasing the U.S.,
Yeah.
but also, keeping a retaliatory plan in their back pocket,
Yeah, like a plan B.
just in case.
Yeah, it looks like they're proposing to increase imports of things like
Okay.
liquefied natural gas, fertilizers, even weapons from the U.S.
Interesting.
Almost like they're trying to address
Yeah.
those demands that the U.S. has made in the past.
But wouldn't that hurt European industries?
That's a good point.
Or if they're importing more from us.
Yeah, because while imports are good for consumers, it means more variety, maybe lower prices.
Right.
It can really create some stiff competition
Right.
for domestic producers. The EU would have to be really careful about balancing, trying to benefit but not hurt their own industries.
It is a delicate balancing act.
Definitely.
So what other areas of collaboration
Okay.
do source the sources mention?
Well, besides just increasing imports, it seems like the EU might propose working with the U.S. on controlling exports to China,
Interesting.
scrutinizing investments for national security risks
Uh-huh.
and tackling the whole steel overcapacity issue.
Mm-hmm. Those are
Areas where we agree.
Yeah, definitely some common ground there.
And maybe they could avoid a trade war.
Potentially, yeah.
So what about retaliation, though? What'd they say about that?
Well, the EU's actually got some experience with that,
From back in 2018, when the U.S. first imposed those tariffs,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
they hit back with tariffs of their own,
Mm-hmm.
targeted some pretty iconic American brands.
Like what?
Harley-Davidson, Levi Strauss.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so their strategy back then wasn't just about the economics.
Yeah,
They wanted to send a message.
right.
So hitting those iconic brands was their way of saying, hey, we can play this game too, and we know exactly where it hurts.
So they were going for pressure points.
Oh, yeah.
That would really hit,
Absolutely.
both economically and politically.
Definitely. Make a statement.
So are they going to use the same strategy this time?
Well, the EU's been pretty quiet
Right.
about their specific retaliation plans this time around, but I think their actions in the past give us a pretty good idea of what they might do.
Yeah.
The fact that they're not showing their cards just yet, it tells me they're being strategic,
Yeah.
carefully thinking it through, biding their time,
So it's like a game of chess. You don't make your move until you're ready.
Don't tip your hand too early.
And don't let your opponent know what
Right.
you're going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, the EU's also got this temporary suspension of some of those tariffs
Right.
that they put in place.
Mm.
And whether to extend that or let it expire, that's another
That's a big decision.
tool that they have.
Yeah, it's a lot of leverage.
So they're really walking a tightrope here
It seems that way.
between, diplomacy
Mm-hmm.
and the potential for retaliation.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. We'll get into some of their potential strategies and the historical context
Yeah, that'll be really interesting.
in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
But first, we got to take a quick break.
All right.
It's interesting to think back to 2018.
Yeah.
It's like we can look at that
Yeah.
as a case study
Yeah.
for how they might approach things now.
It definitely gives us a framework
Yeah.
for understanding how they might, what tactics they might use.
And back then, they didn't just impose tariffs randomly.
Right.
It was very targeted
Yeah, they had a purpose.
to have the biggest impact.
Definitely.
And it wasn't just about economics either.
No.
They were sending a message.
Absolutely. It was symbolic.
Yeah.
They chose products that would resonate both economically and symbolically.
Right. And so are we seeing echoes of that today?
It's possible.
I mean, the EU's being super secretive about their retaliation plans.
Yeah. They're being very quiet about it.
Makes me think that they might be using a similar playbook.
Yeah, I mean, their silence
Yeah.
definitely suggests they're thinking strategically. They're probably analyzing all their options,
Okay.
biding their time, and then
Okay.
they'll reveal their hand when they're ready.
It's like a chess game.
Exactly.
They don't announce your move
Right.
until you're about to make it.
Exactly. Keep your opponent guessing.
Keep them guessing.
Yep.
And don't forget, the EU also has that temporary suspension of some tariffs.
Oh, that's right.
That's another tool
Yeah.
in their toolbox.
Big decision to make.
Right. Do they extend it or do they let it expire?
It gives them a lot of leverage in the negotiations.
It's powerful.
Yeah, sure.
So they're walking this tightrope
They are.
between diplomacy
Mm.
and potential retaliation.
Yeah, it's a tough
It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
But it also begs the question,
What's that?
can they actually succeed?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Can they navigate all of this
Right.
and avoid an all-out trade war with the U.S.?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
What do you think?
I mean, it depends on so many things.
Yeah.
You got global politics,
All right.
the global economy, what the U.S. administration does.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts.
Definitely.
But you know what I've been thinking about?
What's that?
This whole euro versus dollar thing,
Yeah.
this potential trade war,
Mm-hmm.
is this just like a blip?
Okay.
Or are we seeing a
Yeah.
bigger shift happening?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you,
Yeah.
A lot of analysts are trying to figure that out right now.
Really?
Yeah, there's this sense that things are changing.
Yeah, okay.
You know, the global economy's in flux.
Yeah.
The old power dynamics, they're being challenged.
All right.
New economic centers are emerging.
Interesting.
It's like the whole landscape is being reshaped.
So are you talking about, like, China?
China's a big part of it.
But,
They've got a lot of economic power now.
Oh, yeah.
And that's changing global trade.
Right. And what about technology?
Technology, too.
All the new stuff.
Absolutely. Digital currencies, e-commerce, whole new industries.
Yeah.
It's disrupting everything.
It really is.
It is. It's a lot to process.
It is a lot.
But it's exciting, too.
Yeah, it's exciting to be living through it.
It is. There are challenges, but there are also a lot of opportunities.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
But before we go, I
Yeah.
want to make sure that our listeners
What?
have some key takeaways.
Of course. Yeah.
What are some of the most important things they should be thinking about?
All right. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to not get caught up in the short-term stuff.
Right.
You know, the euro's rebounding now,
Yeah.
but long-term,
Yeah.
nobody really knows.
Right.
Remember what those experts said about parity and potentially even further depreciation?
Right.
Those are things to keep an eye on.
I think that's really important because it's easy to get distracted
Oh, for sure.
by what's happening day to day,
Definitely.
but you got to keep the long-term perspective.
Absolutely.
Talk about
Okay,
that.
so second,
Yeah.
pay close attention to what the EU is doing.
Right.
They're trying to walk that tightrope
Mhm.
between diplomacy and retaliation,
Yeah.
and how that plays out
Yeah.
is going to have a big impact on trade and the global economy.
So it affects businesses and consumers.
Oh, yeah,
On all
absolutely.
sides.
For sure.
And, we could see
Yeah.
prices change,
Right.
supply chains disrupted,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even job markets shifting.
Oh, it's a lot to consider.
It's important to be aware of those things.
Definitely.
So basically, stay informed, be adaptable,
Yep.
and keep an eye on the big picture.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to leave our listeners with? It sounds like we should all be learning from the EU right now.
Yeah.
Be strategic, be adaptable,
Right.
always have a backup plan.
Absolutely. Like you said, they're playing chess.
Yeah, exactly.
Always thinking a few moves ahead.
But are there any other key takeaways that you think our listeners should really be thinking about?
You know, one more thing I'd emphasize
Uh.
is the importance of innovation.
Okay.
Because in a world where things are changing so fast,
Right.
the people who can come up with creative solutions,
Mhm.
they're the ones who are going to thrive.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all those new industries we talked about.
Right.
They wouldn't exist without innovation.
That's a really good point. It's not just about surviving.
Right.
It's about finding new opportunities.
Exactly.
This whole conversation,
Mhm.
it really highlights how interconnected the global economy is.
It does.
What happens in one place affects everyone else.
Yeah. It's like we're all in this together.
We are.
So with that in mind,
Okay.
I think it's time for our final thought-provoking question.
Okay, hit me.
We've talked about the EU's potential strategies, but, they're really walking a tightrope here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Okay.
Do you think they're going to be able to navigate all of this
Yeah.
and avoid a trade war with the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this something bigger? Are we seeing the global economy changing in a really fundamental way?
Wow, those are great questions.
Yeah,
And we want to hear what you think.
definitely.
So share your thoughts on our social media
Yeah, start a conversation.
or talk to someone you know.
Exactly.
Because the more we understand these complex issues,
Mhm.
the better we'll be able to handle the challenges and the opportunities
Well, sure.
that are coming our way.
Definitely.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,
Absolutely.
and keep diving deep.
Yeah, see you next time.